Welcome to AECI Water, a division of AECI Group. AECI Water embraces a safety culture and strives towards the goal of zero harm. The safety and protection of our people and the environment is our top priority. We aspire to operate without harm to people, the environment, and the communities in which we operate. To ensure zero harm, we believe in these four critical fundamentals: accountable leadership that sets the tone for zero harm. Our business comes with risks, and we take reasonable steps to minimize and mitigate those risks. We drive continuous improvement actions to achieve zero harm, and our people own and actively participate in the journey to zero harm. We demonstrate and live by the desired behaviors every day. In order to achieve zero harm, our team exhibit the Captain Zero traits. In other words, applying the principles of life-saving behaviors, critical behaviors, and keeping each other out of harm's way. Our life-saving behaviors inculcate a culture of safety throughout the group and focus on those behaviors and activities that have the potential risk of serious injury or fatality when safety rules are not adhered to. The following safety measures have been put in place. The 15 critical behaviors focus on those behaviors and activities that enforce the safe behaviors that are required to minimize any risk of recordable injuries. In our effort to manage safety, health, environment, and quality, we subscribe to the following standards: ISO 45000, ISO 14001, ISO 9001, and responsible care. Entry into the plant areas. Before entering the plant areas, ensure that you complete the visitors register. All visitors or contractors must proceed to the reception where they will be connected to the host. Upon entry to our site, visitors or contractors must declare all personal items at security. For example, cameras, weapons, and laptops, etc. All visitors or contractors will be issued with a card confirming your induction. Management of incidents. Injury on site. Know who the first aider of the area is and who to call in the case of an emergency. All incidents must be reported immediately to the supervisor or AECI employee in the vicinity so that the necessary corrective measures may be taken. If you cannot find plant personnel close by, call emergency services. You are not allowed to take any video or photographs of the emergency scene unless authorized to do so for the purposes of the investigation. Spillages should be contained and cleaned up as soon as possible. Where possible, divert leaks away from the clean storm water drains to avoid environmental pollution. Treat all leaks as hazardous. Never respond to leaks without adequate PPE. What to do when splashed with a chemical. When splashed with corrosive or irritant chemicals on the skin or eyes, it's critical to wash the affected area immediately. Never delay washing. Diphoterine is the most effective solution as a primary action and should be your priority treatment. If there is no diphoterine available, then use the safety shower to rinse off, followed by diphoterine as soon as possible. In cases where the safety shower was used first, apply triple the amount of diphoterine. Remove contaminated clothing and contact lenses and continue washing. Use the entire contents of the diphoterine container. Do not put contaminated clothes back on. Actions in the case of gas release, fire, or explosion. Initiate emergency procedures by actuating the emergency alarm situated outside the following buildings: MCC room, outside the stenciling area, engineering workshop, and control room. This is a siren whereby 3 consecutive but separate bursts of the alarm will sound, each of approximately 5 seconds duration. The M-Pro alarm is tested on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. This test consists of sounding the alarm for a short duration from the control gate. The alarm is a hooter type, located outside the control room, and if activated, will continue to sound for a period of not less than 2 minutes. The AECI water emergency alarms will be tested on a similar frequency of once per week on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. After sounding the alarm, report to the control room to provide incident information. The first 2 responders must don breathing apparatus sets, located outside the admin building, and proceed immediately to the control room. Take note of the emergency escape routes and the nearest breathing apparatus sets in the vicinity. All other persons on site must proceed, upwind if possible, to the nearest G room. Take note of the G room procedure and follow it. And take note of the wind direction and evacuate upwind from the leak. If the fire is in a flammable storage area, check that the automatic sprinkler system has come into operation. If not, activate the system manually. If necessary, foam must be applied to the fire. When the condition is safe, the all clear will be initiated by the Action Group Leader or MPRO controller as per the extent of the emergency. Personal protective equipment. At the entrance to each plant is a board which indicates the PPE that must be worn before entering the plant. Make sure that you have all the PPE as prescribed. The standard PPE for this manufacturing site is a hard hat, elastic banded spoggles for eye protection. If you use prescription glasses, you need prescription safety glasses or overspecs. Hearing protection. Make sure that you wear your hearing protection in all noise areas. These areas are demarcated as such and have a symbolic safety sign. An acid or flame retardant overall with reflective strips. Steel toe safety boots with ankle support, suitable for an acid environment. No tackies will be allowed in the plant. Wear your PPE as required. Check the condition of your PPE before you wear it. Defective PPE will not be allowed in any circumstances. When handling hazardous chemical substances, ensure that you understand the PPE requirements. Details can be found on the safety data sheet. Never take shortcuts through the plant exposing yourself to plant hazards. Do not wander around the plant areas. Visitors must be accompanied by the AECI personnel at all times, unless authorized to work independently. Legal requirements. Note that our site is governed by certain legislations which include acts and regulations, municipality bylaws, etc. These have been translated into SHE rules and must be adhered to at all times. To name a few, the OSH Act and its regulations, NEMA, and many more. AECI Water takes compliance seriously and enforces it throughout our operations. Remember, you may refuse to carry out a task if reasonably you believe that it poses a risk to your health and safety or the environment. Hazards and risk management. Our operations involve the use of dangerous goods, which must be stored appropriately. These goods include raw materials, intermediaries, finished products, and waste materials. Our plant is also classified as a major hazard installation due to the type and quantities of chemicals processed, stored, and distributed to customers. The hazards posed by these chemicals include inhalation, absorption through the skin, and ingestion, which can have detrimental effects on your health. Other hazards include spillages, fire, and explosions. Not only can these affect your health, but they can also cause harm to the environment and the general public's health. Do not exceed the maximum storage capacity. This could result in a release of product causing spillages, fires, or explosions. When walking around the plant, be on the lookout for any spillages and report those to plant personnel. When storing chemicals, ensure that they are compatible with one another. To protect yourself against hazards associated with the use of hazardous chemicals, ensure that you are trained on hazards associated with each chemical that you handle. Before, during, and after any task, zero in. Zoom in on an area. Consider the task at hand, people around, the area of concern, and the tools required to complete the job. Evaluate. Evaluate the risk by looking at what can go wrong, how and why it will go wrong. Reaffirm. Reaffirm controls and behaviors required. Opportunity. Correct any deviations and ask for help when not sure. Before working on any equipment, ensure that it is decontaminated and free from hazardous materials. Where hazardous materials cannot be removed, ensure that you wear the appropriate PPE as prescribed on the operating instructions, SDS, and permit to work. These may include the use of acid suits, aprons, respiratory PPE, and so on. After handling hazardous substances, ensure that your hands are washed before you smoke or eat. When exposed to hazardous chemical substances, report the matter to your supervisor and get help immediately. Permit to work. Before any work starts, you must obtain a permit to work issued by the competent and authorized person or official. No permit shall be issued unless the equipment to be worked on has been made safe and positively isolated from live systems. The acceptor shall discuss the permit requirements with every person involved. Confined space entry permit. There are strict safety requirements for the control of confined spaces, as a hazardous substance could accumulate or an oxygen deficiency atmosphere may occur while the work is in progress. A person entering a confined space should be in possession of a valid permit to work. This permit must also be countersigned by a senior manager after verifying controls. A competent person must test the atmosphere before entry into a confined space. The oxygen limit must be between 20 and 23%. The permit issuer shall ensure that the continuous airflow is supplied into a confined space to maintain a safe environment during the execution of the work. A trained standby or safety watch, who is a qualified first aider, must be available, and the entry log must be completed during entry and exit. All pipelines connected to such a confined space shall be positively isolated with a blank or a spade. The lockout, tagout procedure shall be followed for rotating or electrical equipment connected to the confined space. All work in the confined space shall be stopped when there is no competent standby or safety watch available, or when the conditions within the confined space change and the life of the entrance is at risk. Entry into a confined space shall be prohibited by affixing the "Do Not Enter" crossbars at the manhole. These crossbars can only be removed on request by the standby, after confirming that the confined space is safe for entry. A rescue plan shall be in place for all vessel entries. Hot work or open flame permits. Hot work activities can cause incidents if not managed properly, and as such they should be avoided unless adequate precautionary measures have been put in place to ensure safe execution of the task. Alternative methods shall be considered before resorting to hot work. The area or the equipment must be made safe prior to starting work. Test the atmosphere before any hot work activities start. This includes all nearby pits or sumps and tank drains. If flammable gases and VOCs are still present, vessels must be re-washed or purged with air to remove gases. Ensure that there are no combustibles or flammables in the area where hot work is performed. Where sparks may be generated, steps must be taken to prevent the spread of sparks or slag when welding, cutting, or grinding, etc. Trained standby personnel must be available with the relevant firefighting equipment as prescribed on the permit. Smoking is permitted only in designated areas. Electrical isolation and energy testing. Isolation and zero energy testing prevent injuries caused by exposure from live electrical equipment, high pressure fluid, hazardous chemicals exposure, and radiation exposure. Before any work starts, ensure that the equipment to be worked on is electrically and mechanically isolated and locked out. A functionality test must be conducted to ensure that the equipment is electrically isolated. Each discipline, for example mechanical, electrical, and process, working on that equipment must attach his or her own lock to the switch. Place danger, do not operate, or danger locked out notices on isolated equipment. Before commissioning any electrical equipment, unless all permits have been signed off and the equipment is ready to start up, diligently perform your pre-startup checks. They are in place to minimize and prevent process safety incidents. Working near or around liquid bodies. A permit shall be obtained for all work carried out next to the effluent pits and any liquid bodies, for example dams, reservoirs, etc. Measures shall be taken to prevent personnel from drowning. Vehicle and road safety. Only operate or drive vehicles that you are licensed and authorized to. Inspect the vehicle before driving and only drive it if it is roadworthy. Talking on a cell phone or texting while driving is strictly prohibited. Remove any prohibited items before driving into or out of the site. Alternatively, hand those items to the security at the gate. Transporting of personnel at the back of backies is strictly prohibited. If transporting personnel, ensure that the vehicle has proper seats with seat belts for all occupants. Loose tools and equipment are not transported in the passenger seating areas. Keep your gate entry permits and a valid driver's license card with you at all times. Ensure that the vehicle is not overloaded or that the load is not protruding from the back. Material safety data sheets shall be made available for any chemicals or hazardous goods being transported. Only park in designated areas. Only reverse parking is allowed on site. Obey all traffic rules, including speed limits. Drivers must be on the lookout for pedestrians while driving on site and give way. Pedestrian safety. Pedestrians must be aware of moving vehicles and forklifts on site. Before crossing any road, ensure that it is safe to do so and ascertain that the driver can see you. Cross the roads on designated pedestrian crossings only. Working at heights. All work carried out at heights above 2 meters requires a permit. Always secure yourself when working at heights and stop work immediately when not sure. Make sure that you are trained in the fall protection or prevention plan. Ensure that the fall protection equipment is suitable for use. It must be inspected before use. Altering a scaffold is strictly prohibited. Only competent scaffold builders are authorized to do so. If scaffolding is left incomplete or in an unsafe condition, a scaffold unsafe to use notice shall be posted on the structure. You are not allowed to stretch your body outside the scaffolding barriers. Rather, have the scaffolding modified so that you have safe access to the point of work. All scaffolds must be rechecked after severe weather conditions prior to use. When walking up or down the stairs, maintain 3-point contact. Keep your eyes on the path, have one foot on the staircase, and hold on to the handrail. Inspect ladders before use. Use an approved ladder. Ladders must be secured while in use. A buddy system is required. Never climb a ladder with tools in your hands. You are not allowed to remove any plant grating without ensuring that measures are taken to prevent people from falling into pits, ditches, or openings. A scaffold barrier shall be erected where the grating has to be removed. When using hoses to transfer liquid from sumps, a small hole shall be designed to allow the insertion of the hose. Under no circumstances shall a person lift a grating to insert hoses, unless all measures have been taken to prevent a person from falling into a sump, pit, or ditch. Only do work that you are authorized and competent to do. On-the-job training ensures that work instructions are understood and applied. Make sure that you are trained on the hazards associated with the job or task you are undertaking. Rigging and lifting. Rigging and lifting activities will only be conducted by competent and authorized persons. When rigging and lifting activities are in progress, the area must be barricaded off and unauthorized entry to the area is prohibited. You are not allowed to stand under suspended loads. Failure to adhere to this rule could result in serious consequences. Ensure that all lifting equipment is inspected and suitable for purpose. All lifting activities shall be stopped during severe weather conditions. Moving and rotating machinery. Beware of moving and rotating machinery in our plants. Never work on, near, or under rotating or moving machinery. These could cause injuries such as crushed hands and severe injury. Ensure that all rotating machinery is operated only when guards and interlocks are safely in place and functioning as intended. Before working on rotating or moving machinery, ensure that the equipment is electrically isolated and that you are in possession of a valid permit to work. Inspect moving and rotating equipment before startup to ensure that all work has been completed and that the rotating machinery is ready to start up. During plant start, when these conveyors are started, you will hear a warning sound. Always pay attention to the alarms and warning lights when working around the conveyors. Loose-fitting clothing, long hair, or jewelry is strictly prohibited when working near rotating and moving machinery, as these can be caught in moving or rotating machinery. Forklift safety. Forklifts will only be driven by a competent driver who possesses a valid license. A forklift must not be driven into areas where the slope and condition of the surface make the area unsuitable for the type of forklift being used. When driving a forklift, keep to the speed limit and always fasten your seatbelt. The forklift must be inspected for safety and operational faults prior to the first use on each shift. Hand and specialized tools. Inspect your tools before use and ensure that they are safe and suitable for purpose. Do not throw tools from one location to another or from one employee to another. Use the right tools for the right job. Transport hand tools only in toolboxes or tool bags. Do not carry sharp or pointed hand tools such as knives in your pocket. Specialized tools will need to be approved before being used on site. Ensure that no objects can fall from heights, injuring people below you. Where practical, no work may be carried out below the scaffold unless measures have been taken to prevent falling objects. Electrical appliances inspection. All appliances must always be maintained in good working order. If any appliances are unsafe to use, they must be taken out of service. This includes equipment with bare wires, frayed covering, cracked plug tops, or loose pins. Ensure that the electrical appliances you bring on site are approved by AECI and that they are inspected as per the schedule. Excavation safety. Excavation and trenching are among the most hazardous construction operations which pose dangers such as cave-ins, a person falling loads, hazardous atmospheres such as accumulation of gases in the trench, cutting into surfaces, and so on. For this reason, any excavation done on-site requires an excavation permit as well as the appropriate plant permit to work. No excavation shall be done unless the area has been surveyed for underground services. If during the excavation within the Umbog Industrial Complex, groundwater or foreign material that cannot be identified is encountered, it must be considered toxic. The excavation must be stopped immediately, and the contractor must notify the originator and the APS Environmental Department on this telephone number, cell 082-440-7207. Alcohol and drug abuse. The nature of our business makes it extremely dangerous for any individual to drive, operate any equipment, or work under the influence of alcohol and drugs. Therefore, AECI Water applies zero tolerance when it comes to drugs and alcohol. No person may enter the site if under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Searches for alcohol, prohibited drugs, and other substances of abuse within the workplace may be conducted. Should we believe that you are under the influence, you will be immediately removed from the site. The misuse of legitimate drugs, or the sale, possession, distribution, or use of other substances of abuse in the workplace is strictly prohibited. Any employee who suspects another individual of being intoxicated or in an unfit state due to the influence of alcohol or drugs shall report the matter to supervisors or security. safety, or emergency equipment. In the interests of health and safety, do not misuse or abuse any equipment provided. Do not remove any emergency equipment from its location. Standby personnel have standby equipment. For your safety and emergency assistance, we have diphotoring stations and safety showers strategically located at high-risk areas throughout the site. When carrying out work that includes handling of chemicals, diphotoring shall be placed as close as possible for a speedy response in the case of chemical splashes. Know the location of all emergency equipment. This will save your life or prevent permanent scarring. Do not cause any obstructions to emergency equipment, as these may be needed in the case of an emergency. Do not interfere with the trip or interlock systems provided in the interest of safety. General housekeeping. We take pride in the appearance of our facility. All workspaces must be maintained to the highest housekeeping standards. Housekeeping is the responsibility of all employees. Yes, that includes you. Keep aisles, walkways, corridors, staircases, entrance halls, doorways, and emergency exits clear and accessible. Report any defective signs or plant equipment to your supervisor or plant personnel. Ensure that equipment laydown areas are clearly identified and kept in good condition at all times. Dispose waste in dedicated bins. Do not mix plant-contaminated waste and general office waste. Do not put chemicals and oil into the stormwater drains. Stormwater drains can be identified by the white triangle. No eating and drinking in the plants. Only eat in designated areas. Safety will always be integral to our culture, and each and every one of us is responsible for both our individual and collective well-being, because we are zero heroes. This induction is valid for a period of 12 months. Once you completed the induction, you will be issued with an access card, which you must keep in your possession at all times while on site. Failure to do so will result in your being removed from the site. Thank you for your time. Please go out there and practice these rules. Remember to zero in before, during, and after any task.